The day began like any other, inside the towering glass building of Axistech Global. Employees poured in with coffee cups and tired smiles, their fingers already tapping away on keyboards. But everything changed at exactly 9:17 a.m. The screens flickered. At first it seemed like a simple power surge, an inconvenience. But within seconds, red error messages replaced dashboards, servers beeped ominously, and a silent wave of dread washed across every department. In the server room, technicians scrambled. They rebooted systems, checked cables, ran diagnostics. Nothing worked. The heart of Axistech, their central operations system, was completely unresponsive. In the executive suite, the CEO, Richard Kane, was mid-call with an overseas partner when his screen went black. He blinked, once, twice. Then the phone died too. His face hardened. 10 minutes later, Richard stormed into the command center, his silver hair disheveled, tie loosened and jaw clenched. "What the hell is happening?" He barked, voice echoing. No one answered. The lead engineer stepped forward, sweat on his brow. "Sir, it's not just a glitch. Our internal access points were compromised. Someone knew what they were doing." Richard's eyes widened. "You're telling me this is sabotage?" A hushed murmur passed through the room. "Find them. Now," he ordered. "If this isn't fixed in 15 minutes, we'll lose every deal on the Pacific board." While chaos spread, no one noticed a young girl standing quietly in the corner, small, with a backpack and curious eyes. She said nothing, just watched. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was only waiting for her father, the janitor, who'd promised to take her home after work. But as her eyes scanned the broken code flashing across the screens, something in her expression changed. She saw something the others didn't. Amid the whirlwind of stressed engineers and executives shouting into dead phones, the girl quietly stepped closer to the main control desk. Her name was Lila, 10 years old, thoughtful, observant. No one had ever paid much attention to her. Today would be different. Her father, Manuel, the night janitor, had picked her up from school and brought her to finish a sandwich while he did some overtime cleaning. He'd told her to stay near the break room. But the moment the alarms went off, Lila had followed the crowd. The engineers argued loudly, blaming network providers, software updates, and even solar flares. But Lila stared at the lines of code flashing on a monitor and furrowed her brow. It wasn't random. To her, the pattern made sense, almost like someone had left a fingerprint hidden deep inside the back-end protocol. A security guard approached. "Hey kid, this is no place for—" Before he could finish, Lila reached for a nearby keyboard and typed a series of commands. The screen shifted. Error logs transformed into raw code. "What the—" muttered one of the engineers. "Stop her!" shouted another. But Lila kept typing. Lines of injected script scrolled across the display. She pointed. "That's not a crash. Someone placed a backdoor into your API. Look. See that loop? They're redirecting traffic to a shadow server." A stunned silence followed. The lead engineer blinked. "Wait. She's right." Richard Kane, the CEO, stared. "Who are you?" "I'm Lila," she said quietly. "My dad is the janitor, but I've been learning code since I was 6. The room fell dead silent. The janitor's daughter had just exposed a level of sabotage no one else could even detect, and things were about to get worse. The tension in the room grew thicker by the second. Lila stepped away from the terminal, her eyes still locked on the code. Her small fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from urgency. She knew what she saw. The lead engineer leaned in, scrolling back through the logs. "She's right," he mumbled. "There's a shadow process masking the data flow. This wasn't external. It's coming from inside." Richard's eyes narrowed. Inside? Someone in the room was responsible. Suddenly, one of the side monitors blinked. A new alert. Attempt to erase server logs detected. The room exploded in panic. Whoever had sabotaged the system was now trying to cover their tracks. Lila sprinted to another console. "You need to isolate the syslogs now," she said quickly. "And disable remote access on port 4029. It's still open." The engineer followed her instructions. 3 more screens lit up. Security footage from the lower level. A blurry figure ran through a side hallway toward the emergency exit. That's Jake," someone gasped. "Head of IT security. Get security down there now," Richard shouted. A team rushed out, radios blaring. Back in the control room, Lila focused on one screen. He didn't just create a backdoor, he installed a logic bomb. If we restart the mainframe, it will auto-wipe every file. Richard staggered back. "Why would Jake do this?" "He's been rerouting access credentials for weeks," said Lila. "You never noticed because he covered it with fake maintenance logs." The evidence was damning. But Lila wasn't done. If I can reach the core cache before it auto-wipes, I might be able to stop it. Richard hesitated, then nodded slowly. Do it. The fate of the company was now in her hands. The room buzzed with silent tension. Everyone had stepped back to let Lila work. Fingers flying over keys, she accessed the company's deepest system layers, places even senior engineers avoided. 15 minutes before the cache self-purges, she muttered. Each second was precious. Her father, Manuel, stood by the doorway, shocked and worried. He knew his daughter was smart, but this was something else entirely. Richard paced behind her, watching the countdown tick. What exactly are you doing? I'm redirecting the purge protocol to a dummy sector, Lila said without looking up. If I can fool the logic bomb, it'll think it's erasing everything, but it'll just erase fake data. One engineer nodded slowly, amazed. That's genius. Just then, another screen flashed red, a secondary breach attempt, this time from a mobile device. Jake's still trying to get in remotely, someone shouted. He's using the company VPN, Lila said. Give me admin override, now. The lead engineer hesitated, then typed fast. You're in. Lila launched a trace, locked Jake's device and forced a full disconnect. Remote access disabled, she confirmed. The countdown stopped at 0:02, everyone froze. Then, the lights flickered and the system reconnected, partially. The mainframe was intact. Lila had tricked the purge. People clapped, some even cheered. Richard looked stunned. How did you learn all this? Lila finally looked up. I used to sit in the break room and read your old training manuals while my dad cleaned floors. The entire room fell into humbled silence. This wasn't just about saving a system. It was about realizing how brilliance can come from the most unexpected places. Now that the system was stable, Lila didn't stop. She moved quickly through archived logs, piecing together months of suspicious activities. All of it pointed to one thing. Jake had been sabotaging the company for weeks. Emails rerouted, passwords changed, entire projects disappeared under his supervision. How did no one catch this? An engineer muttered. He masked everything through daily backups, Lila explained, but he left fragments. People like Jake think no one will look beyond surface code. Security returned with news. Jake had fled the building minutes before being traced. Police were already alerted. Richard's face was pale. He was my most trusted director. You trusted the wrong person, said the legal officer quietly, stepping forward. But this girl just saved your entire company from collapse. Lila didn't smile. She was exhausted. Her hands shook as she disconnected from the console. Then Manuel finally stepped forward, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. I'm proud of you, mija, he whispered. Everyone in the room clapped, slowly at first, then louder. Richard approached and offered his hand to Lila. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I did, she said. I stopped a thief. And I protected my dad's job. Silence, respect. For the first time in her life, everyone was listening. Richard turned to his board. She deserves recognition and protection. Get her into any cybersecurity program she wants. I'll fund it. The legal officer nodded. She'll need protection too. Jake won't go quietly. But Lila didn't look afraid. She looked ready. The crisis appeared to be over, but the real storm was just beginning. 2 hours after Lila restored the mainframe, a closed-door meeting was called. Richard Kane, the CEO, sat with the legal team, senior board members, and Manuel, the janitor, accompanied by his daughter. The room was heavy with tension. Richard cleared his throat. We need to discuss how we'll report this incident to the press and stakeholders. A data breach, even prevented, damages our reputation. Lila watched silently, sensing something off. A board member spoke. If this story goes public, shareholders will panic. Best case, stocks plummet. Worst case, lawsuits. The legal officer disagreed. But if we hide this, we risk charges of obstruction. Then Richard looked at Lila. And her. She's a minor. Legally, she shouldn't have had access to that system. Silence. Manuel sat up straighter. She saved your company. You're thinking of blaming her? No, said Richard. I'm suggesting we don't mention her at all. No interviews, no press. We thank her privately and move on. Lila's eyes widened. They wanted to erase her. The board murmured in agreement. A few nodded grimly. It's better this way, one said. Lila stood. You're making a mistake. Richard raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You're not protecting the company. You're protecting your image. The legal officer looked uncomfortable. Then, for the first time, Manuel spoke firmly. You hide what happened, And you disrespect every worker in this building. Lila added, You hide me, and you tell every kid like me that they don't matter. The room fell into a stunned hush. The legal officer finally spoke. She's right. Suddenly, the balance of power shifted. The girl they wanted to forget was becoming the voice they couldn't silence. 1 week later, Axistec held a company-wide town hall. The auditorium overflowed with employees, media, and board members. Tension and curiosity filled the air. Then, the lights dimmed. Richard Kane stepped on stage, appearing solemn. Last week, Axistec faced the most severe internal breach in its history. Millions were at risk. But today, we're still standing, because someone saw what we didn't. A murmur swept through the room. I'd like to introduce the one who stopped it all. Not an engineer, not a developer, but someone none of us expected. Spotlights turned. Lila walked onto the stage, wearing a simple hoodie and sneakers, holding her father's hand. The crowd stood in thunderous applause. She's the reason our systems were saved and our people protected, Richard continued. She is the future of cybersecurity, and more than that, she's a reminder to never underestimate where genius can come from. Lila stepped to the mic. Her voice was soft but steady. I didn't do this for applause. I did it for my dad, because while he cleaned floors, I learned everything I could. And today, I just proved that people like us deserve a seat at the table. The room went silent, then erupted again, with respect, with awe, with tears. Lila smiled, not because she'd become a hero, but because finally they saw her, not just as a janitor's daughter, but as a name they would never forget.